I want to be clear, this conversation is not about winning or losing. It's about something much bigger. The real threat to our league isn't money, it isn't ratings, or even missed calls, or even physical play. It's the lack of accountability from the league office.
You're the commissioner of a league that just had its biggest season ever. Record viewership, sold out arenas, unprecedented momentum. This should be your victory lap. Instead, you're facing the toughest press conference of your career because one of your star players just publicly alleged you told her the league's biggest rookie should be on her knees thanking her lucky stars for what the WNBA has done for her. That's where Cathy Engelbert found herself before the 2024 WNBA Finals. What happened next exposed a crisis that goes straight to the heart of who really controls women's basketball. What started as a private conversation between Engelbert and Minnesota Lynx star Napheesa Collier has erupted into the biggest leadership crisis in WNBA history. Players are speaking out, coaches are backing them up. So before we dive into how this all unraveled, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story is far from over and you're not going to want to miss what happens next. Let's start with what Napheesa Collier actually said.
Her response was, Caitlin should be grateful she makes $16 million off the court because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything. And in that same conversation, she told me players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the media rights deal that I got them.
During her exit interview, Collier described a conversation with Engelbert that left her stunned. When discussing player treatment, particularly rookies like Caitlin Clark commanding massive endorsements, Engelbert allegedly suggested these players should be more grateful for the WNBA platform. The implication? That without the league, stars like Clark, who made millions of dollars in 2024 from off-court endorsements, wouldn't make anything. Think about that for a moment. Caitlin Clark became a household name at Iowa, breaking viewership records before ever stepping onto a WNBA court. Her final college game drew nearly 19 million viewers. She was already a phenomenon, but the commissioner positioned it as if the WNBA made Caitlin Clark, not the other way around. Collier went further. That's the mentality driving our league from the top. We go to battle every day to protect a shield that doesn't value us. The league believes it succeeds despite its players, not because of them. We have the best players in the world, the best fans in the world, but right now we have the worst leadership in the world. The worst leadership in the world from a star player during the finals. The statement hit like a bombshell. Fans who'd watched the league's explosive growth, driven largely by Clark, Angel Reese, and Cameron Brink, immediately connected the dots. This wasn't just about one conversation. This was about a pattern. These allegations broke during two critical moments, the WNBA Finals and active collective bargaining negotiations. The timing couldn't have been worse for Engelbert.
There's a lot of inaccuracy out there through social media and all this reporting. And so I think what's most helpful is to focus on, I have been in touch with Napheesa. We've exchanged texts. We're talking next week.
When Engelbert stepped to that podium, reporters had their questions loaded. She opened with corporate standard fare, soft empathy, vague promises. I have the utmost respect for Napheesa and every single player. If the players don't feel appreciated and valued, then we have to do better, and I have to do better. Sounds reasonable, except reporters weren't there for platitudes. They wanted specifics. ESPN's Malika Andrews went straight for it. Did you, in fact, say that players should be on their knees thanking their lucky stars for the rights deal that you got them? Here's where Engelbert could have given a simple yes or no. Instead, she deflected. I think what's most helpful is to focus on, I have been in touch with Napheesa. We've exchanged texts. We're talking next week. Obviously, a lot of reporting, a lot of inaccuracy about what I said or what I didn't say. Notice what's missing? A denial. She called the reporting inaccurate, but never said what was inaccurate. Another reporter tried, did you in fact say that Caitlin Clark should be grateful she makes millions off the court because without the platform that the WNBA gives her, she wouldn't make anything? More deflection. She praised Clark as transformational, but gave no direct answer. The frustration built with each evasive response. Engelbert retreated to the same talking points. We support our players. So there's been inaccurate reporting. were focused on dialogue. Then came the defining moment. When pressed about whether she was the right person to lead, Engelbert declared, "I've never been a quitter. I'm entering my 40th year in business, never been a quitter, never shied away from tough situations." But nobody asked her to quit. They asked her to take responsibility. Instead, she framed herself as a victim of criticism. The gap between what she was saying and what players experienced firsthand became impossible to ignore.
Just last night, it was revealed that Napheesa Collier canceled the meeting with Cathy Engelbert. And this has gotten too public, too messy, and we didn't even necessarily need to know about Napheesa Collier canceling this meeting with Cathy. What she allegedly said is that Engelbert's assertion at a Friday news conference that Collier's depiction of a private conversation between them was filled with inaccuracies has pretty much pushed the relationship beyond repair.
Within hours, the floodgates opened. Players who normally stay quiet during controversy started speaking up, and they weren't subtle about it. Lexi Hall, known for her professionalism and usually staying out of league politics, publicly backed Collier. That alone sent a message. When even the measured voices start breaking silence, you know something fundamental has shifted. A'ja Wilson, the league's reigning MVP and one of its biggest stars, showed support. Elena Delidane, a veteran who's seen commissioners come and go, added her voice. These weren't fringe players or rookies without clout. These were the faces of the league, the ones who appear in marketing campaigns and championship banners. But it went beyond just players. Coaches started echoing the frustration too. Stephanie White, Indiana's head coach, someone who depends on front office relationships for her own job security, spoke about needing change in leadership. When coaches are willing to risk their standing with league officials to back players, that tells you how deep the divide runs. The unity itself was remarkable. In professional sports, players usually stay cautious. Fines, endorsement complications, playing time, there are 100 reasons to keep your head down. But this time, those filters disappeared. The message was consistent across the board. We want honesty, respect, and leadership that actually understands what we deal with. Media personalities jumped in too. Stephen A. Smith questioned Engelbert's awareness of player concerns on his show. Dave Portnoy used his massive platform to accuse the league office of hiding behind PR instead of owning mistakes. Each critique added another layer of pressure, shifting the narrative from disgruntled player complaint to legitimate leadership crisis. And here's what made it all more urgent: the injury situation. During that same press conference, reporters asked about the 36% increase in injuries this season according to available data, with even the league's own numbers showing a 29% rise. Players connected Engelbert's dismissive response about Clark and Collier to broader concerns about player safety and inconsistent officiating. It wasn't just about feelings being hurt, it was about physical well-being, career longevity, and whether the commissioner genuinely prioritized player welfare over league image. Collier herself had put it perfectly in her initial comments. We're the players that are driving this change. Regardless of how it's said, the messaging stands the same from the player's perspective. Things need to change. Refereeing needs to change. Leadership needs to change. Our league is at a spot it hasn't been in the past 10 years. We're growing exponentially, and we need change to mirror that. Where the players see the league going is different than where leadership sees the league going. That last line is the key. The players and the commissioner have completely different visions for what the WNBA should become. And with collective bargaining negotiations looming, that disconnect isn't just awkward, it's dangerous.
Engelbert will remain in the crosshairs of the conversation when it comes to the disheartened feeling. I mean, Sophie Cunningham called it toxicity around the WNBA. I noticed a change in tune from Engelbert today, though. I do think these comments, or Napheesa's comments, have backed her into a bit of a corner. And it would be wise, in my opinion, instead of trying to fight her way out of the corner like an animal, a wounded animal would do, it would be wise to surrender in a sense. Not even saying she should resign or back out. That's probably not going to happen.
Now here's where this story takes its most interesting turn, because Cathy Engelbert might be the WNBA commissioner, but she's not actually the final authority. Most casual fans don't realize this, but the WNBA isn't fully independent. Half of it is owned by the NBA's Board of Governors. That means Engelbert doesn't just answer to WNBA team owners or players. She reports directly to NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. Her job exists because the NBA allows it to exist. And right now, that might be the most uncomfortable fact in women's basketball. This structure matters more than it seems. The WNBA might be smaller, but it's tied directly into the same machinery that runs billion-dollar TV contracts, corporate sponsorships, and global branding campaigns. The upcoming joint media rights deal, valued at roughly $2.2 billion over 11 years, connects both leagues financially. If investors start seeing the women's side as unstable, it reflects back on the entire basketball operation. For years, Silver has talked about alignment between the leagues, about how the WNBA's growth benefits everyone, but alignment cuts both ways. When the WNBA helps grow basketball's footprint, Silver highlights it as proof that inclusion makes business sense. When leadership at the WNBA level becomes the story for the wrong reasons, every corporate quote about growth becomes awkward PR cleanup for the NBA office. Behind closed doors, that's exactly what's happening. The conversation has shifted from whether Engelbert can regain authority to whether Silver will eventually step in to restore order before the next collective bargaining cycle turns chaotic. Think about it. If the players' union goes into negotiations fundamentally distrusting the commissioner, every clause becomes a flashpoint. A league that depends on partnership can't function if the players believe the top executive disrespects them. With anger spilling across social platforms and talk shows, Silver's Circle knows this isn't a small personnel issue. It's a reputational risk attached to real dollars and broadcast rights. There's precedent too. Professional sports history is full of executives removed not because their work failed on paper, but because optics spiraled out of control. When sponsors, networks, or athletes lose faith, leadership changes happen quickly to stabilize value. Insiders have described tense meetings where decisions are being delayed until the finals ended just to avoid overshadowing the games. Everyone understands the timing, but they also understand that ignoring the issue looks worse than addressing it. The phrase circulating internally say, protecting momentum, which is corporate speak for keeping advertisers confident that women's basketball is still a safe investment. That's why whispers about Silver intervening have started feeling less like rumor and more like inevitability. At this point, it's not even about whether Engelbert deserves credit for the league's growth. It's about control. Who actually has it and who's being exposed as replaceable? Silver sits in that rare position where he could make a single executive decision and shift the WNBA's entire trajectory. For fans and players, the realization that Engelbert isn't the ultimate authority she appears to be is turning into cautious hope. If Silver steps in, they imagine leadership finally aligning with players instead of standing above them. So where does this leave us, with the WNBA at a genuine crossroads? On one side, unprecedented growth, record attendance, doubled viewership, a rookie class that brought mainstream attention the league has never seen. Caitlin Clark's impact alone has been transformative. On the other, a leadership structure players openly say doesn't value them. A commissioner who's lost the trust of the athletes she represents. In collective bargaining negotiations where every unresolved tension will surface, the players have made their position clear. They're demanding change, better officiating for safety, leadership that sees them as partners, not products, a seat at the table for decisions about their league. This generation, Lexi Hull, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, embodies modern athlete empowerment. They've watched NBA players leverage platforms for change. They're not accepting the old model where commissioners decide behind closed doors and players smile and say thank you. What makes this moment critical is timing. The WNBA has never had more leverage, visibility, or momentum. But momentum evaporates if the foundation is shaky. If collective bargaining becomes a public battle, if star athletes question whether the league values their contributions, all that growth becomes vulnerable. That's why eyes are on Adam Silver. He has the power to make a change defining the next era of women's basketball. He could bring in leadership players' trust that balances business growth with athlete empowerment that sees stars like Clark as partners building something bigger. The WNBA doesn't need another promise to do better. It needs people who actually will. It needs leadership, recognizing the league's success isn't happening despite its players, but because of them. The players aren't just playing basketball. They're building a movement. They're changing what women's sports means, how much space it occupies in culture, and they won't let anyone diminish what they're accomplishing. As we head into the offseason, into CBA negotiations, one thing is clear. The players have spoken. They've drawn a line. The question isn't whether change will come. It's who's brave enough to make it happen. What do you think? Should Engelbert step down or get another chance? Drop your take in the comments and smash that subscribe button, because this is the biggest story in basketball and you don't want to miss what happens next. The WNBA's future is being written right now. Let's see who's holding the pen.